Well, I think we can take a couple questions. I think we got about 5 minutes. Yeah?
Question about the Rh negative and the Basque people.
Yep.
Do you know why there is a concentration in the Basque region? Do you think it's just where Atlanteans might have gone through migration to Africa after that, or to Egypt, or wherever they did? Stopping point, or overland from the British Isles, or if you want to call it that?
Okay. Well, if you know where the Basque region is, it's in the Pyrenees, Bay of Biscay, kind of in that elbow between southern France and northern Spain on the Atlantic coast. Well, the belief is that these are some of the oldest intact people of the world. And I think I touched upon it on the introduction, that they may have been descendants of Atlantis and still held their culture in a cohesive way, as well as mated mostly amongst themselves. That's why 30% of them are Rh negative. Yeah?
You mentioned that the U.S. has served corporations since 1871. What happened then?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was basically during a period of weak presidencies, and they were able to get some legislation in to give corporations more power. This is actually a subject that I'm going to cover in my third book, so I'm not as very well versed on it, but I do know that that's the year, as well as 1913 being the year of the Federal Reserve. So things started happening after Lincoln, because he got us off of the central bankers and created the greenback. And they couldn't have that. So similar to Kennedy, who was also putting us back on the silver standard, and there's very rare $5 bills in red that don't say Federal Reserve currency. They say U.S. Treasury, redeemable for silver. You don't see that anymore, but we should. Anyone else? Yeah?
You said previously when we talked that watching television can provide a frequency that inadvertently changes your body and mind.
Yes, well, and this has to do with the pineal gland not being as active as it should be. Just remember that television is one way. You can never talk back to it. You can never give it feedback. And the frequency that comes out of a television can put you in a very docile state, in a state where you're receiving their information the way they want you to think that events are transpiring. So the advent of the internet has changed all that, because the frequency coming out of a computer is not the same as a television. And we have the ability to communicate amongst each other, unlike television, which is one way.
So I understand that it makes you docile if you watch television, and I've kind of experienced that, but I'm still able to keep my awareness, and so therefore I'm not just absorbing the message they're giving it to me. I'm still analyzing it.
Oh, you know, I'm not saying that if you watch TV, you're going to totally shut down. I still do too. I watch the news and usually take a nap during BBC NewsHour. But what I'm trying to say is that there are other ways to collect information. You should always look at things from many different points of view, because what we're basically getting is the corporate view of the world. I call the PBS NewsHour the spokespiece for the CFR and Council on Foreign Relations. These are the think tanks, and Hillary Clinton's even said, "Oh, I'm so glad to be at the CFR. It's good that you got a office in Washington. I don't have to travel too far." Because they're giving talking points to the government. And what I want people to consider is, don't be angry at the government. They are merely the players who have been appointed and who are running the show for those more invisible forces. So I guess my point with TV is just be critical that you're getting information from one perspective. And when I say one, I mean all the networks. And I mean BBC News. We can't get Al Jazeera very easily. We can't even get Russia Today very easily.
You can get on the internet, you just go to.
You can. Well, there you go. Because on the internet, you have multiple choices. And at least you can leave a comment, say, with a news story, and you can sometimes get feedback. That's not the case with television. Steve?
Yes, Brad, I want to mention something for the group.
Sure.
You have some wonderful graphics in your presentation. One that's particularly striking had a title on it called The Beginning is Near. And it was the gentleman up on a very rickety ladder looking at the galaxy.
Oh, yeah.
It was an extraordinary graphic. I'd like to mention that that graphic and a whole lot like it apparently resides at a website called imaginaryfoundation.com. So for those of you that were impressed by that graphic like I was, imaginaryfoundation.com is where that and a lot of other very cool graphics reside.
There you go. And it is a cool graphic because you can get really depressed with the world today if you're only seeing this. But like this gentleman has done, if you look beyond it, it's really beautiful out there. And it's an amazing planet that we live on. I've spent many years traveling around the world and seen some of the best and the worst, and it's worth saving. And we're worth going on. And screw these guys if they want 90% of us dead. They will reap what they sow. But knowledge is power, and it's all within our individual task to really become informed. Because I think, as I pointed out in the presentation, they're not giving up this information too easily. And if it wasn't for the internet, as well as Doris and a lot of other people Mark, who were involved in the making of this book, without the internet, it wouldn't have been possible. These books would not have been possible, from my perspective, to create even a decade or two ago. So they really are the zeitgeist of the age. And I think if you have a chance to read them, you'll really enjoy them. Yeah?
Modern Esoteric was one, Future Esoterics 2, and what's the third?
The third one is called Beyond Esoteric. Which may be just, how do you go beyond the future? So that's a working title at the moment, but I'm putting together some chapters, and I never repeat any of my material, so this will all be fresh material, probably 2018 though. Maybe I'll come back here again. Takes a while. I was really hard-pressed to get both of those books done within 14 months of each other. That was a Herculean task, right, Doris? But we did it, and they both look great. So thank you all very much for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. Great to see so many familiar faces and new faces too. And, I'll be up here and signing books if you guys want to talk to me after.